Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've had some great sources sent in from you all about test anxiety.
Some really interesting research articles, actually.
Yeah, some fascinating stuff.
So today we're going to dive right into that. Our mission really is to unpack test anxiety by looking at how researchers kind of came at it from different directions historically and how those approaches are starting to come together now.
hmm
Think of it as, getting a clearer picture without all the extra noise.
Exactly. And test anxiety itself, at its core, it's a specific kind of anxiety, right?
Yeah.
It's that feeling, that knot in your stomach, the racing thoughts, specifically when you feel like you're being evaluated, tests, exams, presentations.
Performance situations?
Yeah, performance situations. It's super common. And the research behind it, well, it has a bit of a history.
Okay, so it sounds like it wasn't just one single line of research from the start. Like maybe different groups were looking at it differently.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. For a long time, research sort of moved along to largely separate paths, you could say.
Yeah.
Two paths.
Two traditions, really. There was the test anxiety research tradition, and then there was the achievement motivation research tradition.
Okay.
Both were interested in performance, how people do when they're evaluated, but they had slightly different angles.
Interesting. So let's tackle that first one, the test anxiety research tradition. What was their main goal? What were they trying to sort of pin down?
Right. So this group was really focused on defining test anxiety. What is it? And how can we measure it effectively?
Okay. Definition and measurement.
Exactly. They saw it as what they called a multidimensional construct. So not just one simple feeling.
More complex than just being nervous.
Much more. It involves, worry, self-doubt that gets in the way of performance, but also physical things, tension, maybe a racing heart, and specific thoughts, often about failing.
So they developed tools like questionnaires.
Precisely.
Mhm.
Scales, questionnaires, ways to try and capture all those different facets of the experience.
That makes sense. You need to get a handle on what you're actually studying.
Yeah.
But did that approach have any gaps? Anything it maybe didn't focus on as much?
That's a key question. And yes, while they were excellent at describing what test anxiety looks and feels like, they sometimes paid, less attention to the why.
The why.
Yeah, the underlying motivation. Like, why does someone feel this anxiety when they're trying to achieve something? What are the deeper drives involved? And that's really where the other tradition comes into play.
Ah, okay. The achievement motivation research tradition. So what were they focused on?
They were looking at the bigger picture, you could say.
Yeah.
The fundamental reasons people strive for success, but also why they sometimes fear failure.
Broader human drives.
Exactly. And actually, one of the early, really influential researchers, a guy named Atkinson, he initially saw test anxiety as just one part of a bigger thing called fear of failure.
So for him, test anxiety was just fear of failure showing up during a test.
Kind of, yeah. It was like the way that general fear of stuffing up manifested in that specific high-stakes test situation.
Interesting. So not really its own separate thing in that early view.
Not totally distinct, no. More like a specific symptom of a broader fear. But, and this is important, later researchers, even within that same achievement motivation field, started to draw clearer lines.
How so?
Well, they began to see, that you could have a general fear of failure in life, but test anxiety was more specifically triggered by those evaluative settings, the exam hall, the interview room.
Right. The context really mattered.
The context was key. They started to distinguish between the general fear and the specific anxiety reaction in tests.
Okay. I think I'm getting the picture of these two separate streams of research.
Hmm.
One zooming in on the anxiety itself during tests, the other looking at the bigger drives, like success and failure. So why is bringing them together such a big deal now? What's the payoff?
Well, the main argument in the research you sent over, and it's pretty compelling, is that when you merge these two perspectives, you get a much richer, more complete understanding of test anxiety.
More than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. The test anxiety tradition, great on the what, maybe not so much on the why from a motivation angle. The achievement motivation tradition provides that missing piece.
Okay.
So by integrating them, we start to see how someone's hopes, their hope for success and their fears about failure actually shape the anxiety they feel. It's not just about the nervousness, it's about the motivational engine behind it.
That's a great way to put it, like understanding the engine, not just how fast the car is shaking.
Yeah, something like that. It's like trying to understand, say, why someone avoids public speaking by just describing their sweaty palms without considering maybe a past bad experience or a deep fear of judgment. You need both.
Right. So how does the research suggest we actually do that? How do we connect these two dots in practice?
Well, one really key way highlighted is to look directly at the relationship between something called hope of success and test anxiety.
Hope of success.
Yeah, it's a core concept from achievement motivation. It's basically how much someone is driven by anticipating good outcomes by achieving their goals. The idea is to bring that motivational factor right into how we think about test anxiety.
So asking questions like, does having a strong hope of success protect you from test anxiety?
Exactly. Or maybe does having a low hope of success make the fear of failure feel even worse and therefore ramp up the anxiety? It's about seeing how these motivational forces interact with the anxiety response.
Okay, so it's not just are you anxious,
Right.
but also what's driving you in this situation, hope or fear? And how do those connect?
Precisely. The integration means recognizing test anxiety isn't just some random emotion popping up. It's tangled up with our basic drives. It's about embedding motivation right into the definition, into the understanding of test anxiety itself.
Yeah, I can see how that would change things. It feels like it would have some pretty significant implications beyond just theory, like for how we study it or even how we try to help people.
Absolutely. The implications are potentially quite broad. For theory, like you said, it lets us build better models, more complete models that show how motivation and anxiety influence each other, instead of just sitting side by side.
Giving us a more dynamic picture.
A much more dynamic picture, yeah. It helps explain why some people get really debilitated by tests, while others in the same situation seem okay. Motivation could be a key difference.
And what about for researchers? How would this change the kinds of studies they might run?
Well, it really encourages designing studies that measure both things together, anxiety and motivation.
Not just one or the other.
Right. You might look at different motivational profiles, like someone high on hope and high on fear versus someone low on both, and see how their test anxiety differs. Or track people over time. If their motivation changes, does their test anxiety change too? It allows for more nuanced questions.
Yeah, moving beyond just anxiety is high or low to understanding the why behind it.
Exactly, getting at the mechanisms.
Okay. And then the big one, the practical side. How could this integrated view actually help someone who, really struggles with tests?
That's the hope, isn't it? While the paper itself doesn't lay out specific therapies, the implications are definitely there. If motivation is a big part of the picture.
Then maybe interventions need to target motivation too.
Potentially, yes. Instead of only focusing on managing the anxious feelings, which is still important, of course, maybe interventions could also work on building that hope of success.
How would you do that?
Well, maybe helping people set achievable goals, focus on positive outcomes, reframe what failure means, see it less as disaster, more as feedback or a learning step.
So tackling both the anxiety and the underlying motivational patterns.
Exactly. Addressing the whole picture might lead to more robust, more effective ways to manage, maybe even overcome test anxiety. It's about a more holistic approach.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive today, the big takeaway seems to be that test anxiety isn't just about feeling nervous. It's really intertwined with our deeper motivations, our drive to succeed, and our fear of, well, not succeeding.
That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah,
We saw how one line of research really mapped out the anxiety itself, its different parts,
right. The what?
the what's, and the other line explored the broader landscape of why we strive and why we fear failure,
The why.
the why. And the crucial step now is seeing how connected they are. Understanding that interplay, how hope and fear relate to that specific anxiety in test situations, that's key for really getting it.
It definitely puts a different spin on it. Makes you think differently about those moments.
So for everyone listening, maybe something to ponder is, think about your own experiences in, say, learning or achievement settings. How much is your drive tied to hoping for success versus worrying about failure? And how might that connect to any anxiety you feel when you know you're being evaluated? That's a really powerful question for reflection. And, looking forward, this integrated view really does open up exciting possibilities. By considering both the anxiety and the motivation behind it, we might find much better ways to understand and help people navigate test anxiety in the future.